So right after you eat these meals, you have energy. But the energy lasts a very short period of time, and you're hungry much sooner. And then you have to eat again, and then you have to eat again, and then you have to eat again.
It is a lot cheaper to go eat fast food. I mean, definitely, you can buy a hamburger for cheaper than you can buy an apple.
That's very sad, because you're telling me I have to pay more in order to eat healthier, but I can pay less in order to get that, and to make you rich, or for something that I might die off of.
It's unbelievable.
The poorest people in our country are the fattest people. We've done something completely wrong here.
On a Sunday afternoon in a New Orleans suburb, the Bucktown Seafood Festival is getting underway. Bucktown is a tiny fishing village that has been here for more than 150 years. It was almost completely destroyed by Hurricane Katrina in 2005, but it hasn't lost its touch for what it does best.
Food is a big part of the culture in New Orleans, and they tend to use a lot of deep-fried foods and heavy sauces. They'll tell you that while people in other places may eat to live, here they actually live to eat.
With New Orleans, most of our food begins with what we call a roux. And a roux is a combination of flour and oil. And that's the basis for most of our sauces. And as a result, there's a lot of fat that's in the basic foods that we make, from the soups, the gumbos, to your etouffees.
How important is food to the culture down here?
It's what we live off of. Without, you take the food away and this city would die. It would. It's all about food and drink around here. You know, the certain way we do seafood, you know, the certain way we fry. I mean, like these guys behind us, the way they fry, the way we take whole onions and, you know, we fry all kind of stuff and make it taste good with the extra spice and throw it the extra kick.
That can't be good for you.
Nah, it can't be, but it sure tastes good.
Have you ever seen anyone eat one of those?
You know, when I was younger, I used to be able to eat one. I couldn't touch a half of one now. It's a big sandwich.
The high-fat, deep-fried food culture here is delicious, but has deadly consequences.
Look at our diabetes and high blood pressure and heart disease. Like, these are major killers.
Wendy O'Neill was born in New Orleans. After Katrina, she says, it's even more difficult to access good food.
It's definitely harder and harder to make food choices. I mean, just with having less time. I do a lot of fast food, and I actually hate fast food. I don't like the way it tastes, but I'll eat it because it's cheap and I can get it on the run.
Typical day for me, let's see. McDonald's for breakfast, McDonald's for lunch, McDonald's for dinner. We ate McDonald's all the time. We ate the trashiest stuff.
For Sidney Impostado, weight has always been an issue. He's down now to 170 kilos from nearly 200. It's been a difficult challenge for his family to endure.
Somehow we see an internal medicine doctor who has a plan that we can go to, and but you know, the prescriptions that he really needs we can't afford, and the specialists we can't afford to see, the kidney specialists, and so it's not a good situation.
I don't want to be the fat guy that was just another typical fat guy who died and, well, we loved him. I wish he would have lost weight. He would have been skinny and he would have lived. I don't want to be that guy.
Dawn has reached the point with Sidney that she believes an operation that would constrict his stomach with a band may be his best hope. But no insurance company will give him coverage because his obesity is considered a pre-existing condition.
You know, it is a radical approach, but if he can't get it soon, his body will not be strong enough to even have that done.
Dawn and Sidney aren't alone. Consider the facts. 2 out of every 3 Americans are overweight, and that number is expected to rise to 3 out of 4 by 2020. The United States is the world's fattest developed nation. with an obesity rate double of that in many European countries. 1 in 3 Americans is expected to have diabetes by 2050. Minorities have been even more profoundly affected. Blacks have a 50% higher prevalence of obesity, and Hispanics 25% higher when compared with whites. So how did it get this way?
Obesity rates have been going up very rapidly in the United States, but really only since about 1980. Before that, they were constant for decades. A change in the way our federal agriculture policy worked, which went from paying farmers not to grow food to paying farmers to grow as much food as they possibly could. And the result of that was an enormous increase in the amount of food available in the country for consumption.
Portion sizes went up as well. Fast food servings are 2 to 5 times what they used to be.
This is the signature Burger King store in Times Square, New York. This particular meal has somewhere around 3,600 calories. Look at this. It would take around 18 hours of exercise to burn off this many calories.
I mean, I still remember there was a Coke machine in the teacher's lounge of my elementary school, and it had these itty-bitty little bottles. I think they probably were 8-ounce bottles of Coke. And now, I mean, it's the average portion that you see if you went into like a convenience store would probably be a 20-ounce bottle that's sold as a single serving.
American food policy doesn't happen in isolation. There are many moving parts that make up a complex puzzle. Large government agencies, multinational corporations, and of course lobbyists who try to shape the country's food policy as it comes out of Washington.
For government to try to force changes, to dictate to consumers in a free society what they do is there's not a good record of that being successful.
All of this goes back to Congress. And if you want to do something about public health in America, what you really need to do is to change election campaign laws so that these big corporations aren't paying for congressional elections. That's the source of corruption in American government.
2 out of every 3 food stores in Harlem is what's known as a bodega. Now, these aren't grocery stores. They're more like corner convenience stores. So rather than having fresh meat and fresh vegetables, they tend to have a lot of processed foods, sugary foods, and especially sodas.
The city of New York has identified sodas and other sugar-sweetened beverages as one of the main causes of obesity. In an attempt to improve health and decrease consumption, the city has requested a 2-year ban on allowing recipients of food stamps, or SNAP, to purchase the drinks.
The SNAP program is really not designed to purchase a person's entire diet, but it's designed to give them more money so that they can afford nutritious foods. And I don't think anyone in this country would argue that sugar-sweetened beverages are nutritious foods.
While the request is being considered by the Department of Agriculture, the beverage industry is fighting back.
It'll add $5 to these drinks. That's not pennies, that's serious money.
New York has fought a similar battle once before and lost when it tried to implement a soda tax earlier this year.
We can't afford no to the beverage tax.
The American Beverage Association spent more than $10 million on their ad campaign defeating the bill.
People are entitled to treat themselves at a certain level.
But are they entitled to treat themselves with government money?
By
as
all
opposed
means,
to their own money?
By all means, because soda is not the sole culprit of obesity. And if you're going to pinpoint what are the culprits of obesity, we're going to have to eliminate maybe 60% of the products we sell in the supermarkets today.
What about people who say, great, eliminate them?
Well, then you have to do that across the board, but the American food landscape is going to be totally different than what we know it today.
One drink for sale at the supermarket is Chubby. Imported from the Caribbean, the manufacturer of the drink boasts that it was developed to target children, and that it fits snugly in the palm of a child's hand. The U.S. has no rules or laws that prevent a soda from being marketed to children. Industry backers like it that way.
An exciting new category in the soft drink industry was created when Chubby was developed to target children.
That's a terrible idea. But, I mean, when was the last time you were able to see Little Chubbies? First of all,
here's Little Chubbies. It's bought in Washington, D.C.
I'm not going to
make it small for
I'm not
the
going to
kids'
defend
hands.
Little Chubbies. This is the kind of poor practice that shouldn't be occurring.
Should it be regulated?
Should it be regulated?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about 7 donuts worth of sugar in there.
So, let's see, it doesn't
They don't put the nutritional information on the bottle.
Oh, well, then it's on the container if it's on the package. Otherwise, it's not legal to be sold in the United States. I don't know where you got it.
Tell me about it. I've got that in Washington, D.C.
Okay, well, I suspect you should probably
But you can
call
get
the
their
company.
nutritional information off their website.
Okay.
30 to 34
Well, I'm
grams
not
of
going to
sugar,
defend
depending
it.
on the flavor.
I'm just not going to defend it. That's a terrible practice.
Should it be regulated?
Should it be regulated?
Mm-hmm. Should children be protected from that?
Protected. Mm-hmm. That's what parents are for.
For many Americans, economic times have never been worse. But for fast food companies, they've never been better. While 1 in 8 Americans rely on food stamps, the stocks of Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and McDonald's are at all-time highs. For consumers, stretching their recession dollars to buy healthy food has been tough, especially when chains like Little Caesars offer a large pizza for only $5. Or the McDonald's McDouble, their double cheeseburger goes for just $1.
Your mother gives you $5. You want to make that stretch, you understand? You're going to McDonald's, you're getting a McDouble, and you're getting you some fries. And then you're going to go to the store and get you something to drink. And that way you still have at least $1 or $2 to maybe buy you some chips a little later.
Growing up, I had home economics in school, and so they taught you what a healthy plate looked like. You had a starch, a protein, a vegetable, and I think that's the information that children don't have. And because they see in their environment unhealthy food and they see it's cheaper, it's being consumed by everybody, they don't think about an alternative. But if you gave them the education, maybe they would have the information to make the alternative choice, the healthier choice.
Are you ready? Yeah! Are you ready? Yeah! Oh, this was a really up-tempo song.
At the Thurgood Marshall Lower Academy, an elementary school on 151st Street,
Everybody get your beatboxes ready!
an experiment is underway to fight back against the array of bad food choices in the community. Dr. Olajide Williams is a neurologist at Harlem Hospital. He's developed a program that harnesses the power of hip-hop music to teach children about healthy food choices.
Hip-hop is a social epidemic amongst the youth. Hip-hop is the life form amongst the youth.
One thing the program teaches is menu board literacy, the ability to read a food label.
There are ranges on the menu board, there are inches and sizes, and it's very, very complicated.
And we also would like you to take the messages that you've learned in our Hip Hop Heals program to your parents, to your grandparents, to your friends and your family members, and teach them about calories.
Dr. Williams knows that the odds are stacked against him. Nearly half the children in Harlem are overweight or obese. And his message has to beat out a well-oiled, well-funded fast food industry that spent $4.2 billion on advertising last year.
We are up against an incredible enemy, for lack of a better word. You know, fast food industry makes money.
TMALS, stop us, hit it.
We are one little small program trying to make a difference in our city, one block at a time, one street at a time, one neighborhood at a time. If we can succeed here in Harlem, we can pretty much succeed in any tough neighborhood across the world.
It's Media Day at the White House, and journalists from around the world are clamoring to see Michelle Obama's kitchen garden. She's decided to make healthy eating and exercise the centerpiece of her role as First Lady.
We have to eliminate food deserts in this country, and we need to do it now.
You don't need to travel far from the White House, just a few miles, to find what Michelle Obama describes as a food desert. Plenty of liquor stores, but no fresh food. Southeast D.C. has one of the worst obesity rates in the country.
The food that you put in your body can either heal you or kill you.
On a Saturday morning, the Ward 8 Farmers Market is a small oasis in an otherwise barren food landscape.
Know what you're doing now.
Yes.
Lauren Vonderpool, a Washington, D.C. native and vegan chef, is giving a demonstration, teaching residents how to make a raw food salad.
So, you know, this is a raw food dish, and now raw foods are good because when you cook your foods, a lot of times the enzymes and the nutrients are released into the water.
I was born in Washington, D.C. I was raised in a food desert, you know, and people just don't know. People just don't know. They haven't been exposed. They haven't left Southeast.
We're done!
They're used to what they've been exposed to. And what they've been exposed to is liquor stores, corner stores, and carryouts. Chicken wings with mumbo sauce, hot chips with blue juices. If all else fails you and you can't find the small jugs of the blue juice, we always have access to the gallon of the blue juice.
Look at that. So that's a gallon of blue juice.
Snow Mountain. Ridiculous.
Artificially colored and artificially flavored. How would you describe the health of people who live in environments like this?
Where we are right now in D.C., which is Southeast Ward 8, is statistically the most obese place in the country. There's something wrong with that being in the nation's capital, something extremely wrong with that. What I find is that when you're eating foods and there are no nutrients in it, you're going to want to eat more because your body is not recognizing the nutrients that you're needing. So you're going to keep on eating. Your body's intelligence says, well, let me keep on eating to try to get some of these nutrients, but you're not getting any of it because you're eating fried foods, you're eating dead foods, you're eating foods that have no life.
This is the United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA. It represents the American food industry, everything from small farmers to chain restaurants. And in doing so, it helps them sell more food. But it also puts out the dietary guidelines for Americans. And for a nation facing an obesity epidemic, eating less food could be the only way out. So how can this one department represent these conflicting interests?
The USDA, whose historic role has been to promote American agribusiness, is now also in the position of promoting healthful diets. And that was never a problem before obesity became a problem. It was only when dietary advice needed to change to encourage people to eat less that the USDA came into conflict. And those conflicts have played out over the years.
Can you give an example?
Well, the dietary guidelines for Americans, which is the advice that the government gives the people about what to eat, it never says eat less of anything.
I worked very hard on setting up the first review process for those to be sure that scientific authorities were calling the shots.
John Bodie was the Assistant Secretary of Agriculture for Food and Consumer Services during the 1980s. Now he's a lobbyist representing clients like Kraft Foods and McDonald's. It's what's known as the revolving door between the food industry and the government agencies meant to regulate it. For example, Michael Taylor was an executive at the agricultural giant Monsanto before taking a senior post at the Food and Drug Administration. Or Catherine Wotecki, who left the USDA in 2001 and later joined Mars, the candy company that makes Skittles and M&Ms, and then was brought back by President Obama this year to the USDA.
And so the revolving door, that causes some concern. That's understandable. The notion that our government officials would one day be a government official and the next day basically selling their influence. And so stepping out for a year, I think that makes good sense. And
those restrictions, enough, though? I mean, don't you still have the relationships?
Those restrictions have been extended, and so they're now longer.
They're now longer?
Yeah.
Well, do you know what they are now?
I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable trying to recite what they are now.
Listen up, America. The Cheesy Bites Pizza is back.
In 2007, Pizza Hut came out with Cheesy Bites Pizza. As you'd expect, it's high in calories and saturated fat. What you may not suspect is that some of the support for it came from a surprising source, a trade group overseen by the USDA.
Is there a conflict of interest when you're representing the cheese industry and you're representing the nutritional interest of Americans?
Well, I wouldn't presume to speak to that because that's not my particular area of expertise. I will tell you that the Food and Nutrition Service, a part of USDA that tries to encourage healthy eating in a school setting, has never taken it more seriously than we do today.
We pressed Julie Paradis about this several times.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm just not going to be able to answer that hard question.
Today, the USDA is celebrating the opening of a salad bar at an elementary school in Washington, D.C. It's a step in the right direction for a school system that has one of the highest obesity rates in the country. 43% of the students here are either obese or overweight.
This is very, very atypical of what you see in the school system. You know, mostly it's processed, high in sugar food.
Cahal Armstrong is an executive chef and owner of a local 4-star restaurant. He took an interest in school food when the White House chef personally asked him to make a visit.
Yeah, we visited Tyler Elementary on Capitol Hill, and we went into the cafeteria and went into the refrigerators and the freezer, and inside the freezer they had this box of turkey sandwiches, you know, and it's turkey sandwich for breakfast, and it had about 100 ingredients in it. We were so shocked I took a photograph of the ingredients that were on the label.
Wait, turkey sandwiches like meat, bread?
Meat and bread, the last time I checked, and bread has 4 ingredients, sometimes 5. So then the kids...
Why do they do this?
It makes the food cheaper.
Ed Brusky was shocked at what he found when he volunteered in his daughter's elementary school cafeteria.
So I went in and expecting to see food cooked from scratch, and here comes all these frozen beef crumbles and tater tots.
Ed started taking pictures of the food for a new blog so that parents could see what their kids were eating. It was mostly processed food. That's partially because the USDA diverts raw excess food to large companies that return it to schools in the form of patties, pizzas, and nuggets.
It's all about money and you know, the so-called value-added products where corporations can somehow get between you and, you know, real farm products and whip it into something that they can make money off of. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Our health versus their money. What do you suppose it is?
Seeds.
Ed works part-time at a private school in Washington, teaching children how to cook and enjoy food. He's seen real changes in the D.C. public school system. Less sugary foods and more fruits and vegetables.
My feeling is school food is important because we're perpetuating a culture of junk food that is literally making kids sick.
The U.S. government says the current generation could be the first in history to have a shorter lifespan than their parents. The forces driving the obesity spike in America may be complex, but they're not unknown. The question is, who's profiting from the current situation? Clearly, not the children.
I think it comes down to money, and I think it's a complicated, multi-layered problem, and I think it's something that's perpetuated itself throughout the years, especially for people of color. To be in a very poor urban area is not exactly a choice. Your money dictates that you need to live there. And the same thing with what you buy to eat. You buy within your means.
The economics of our food structure are completely working against public health. I mean, you almost couldn't have designed a worse environment where you take your least healthy products, things that are high in sugar and fat and salt and highly processed, and you make them significantly less expensive than your most healthy products.
And a lot of families are just in that financial situation where cheap food is so heavily subsidized, so falsely inexpensive, that they just don't know any better, you know? And I tell you, once they find out what we've done with their food system, what we're doing to their children, hopefully they'll be up in arms about it.